want to talk about Bilderberg. When we look at the Bilderberg meeting and what their agenda is, according to Bilderberg, they say it's going to be things like current events. It's kind of vague. We know that's going to be Brexit and the immigration crisis and that sort of thing, because they do talk about Europe, the migration, growth, reform, vision, unity. So, of course, they're going to be talking about Brexit and immigration issues. And then the usual stuff you would expect, like China, Middle East, Russia, U.S. political landscape, the elections, in other words. Cybersecurity, that's been there for a while. Geopolitics of energy, what's going on with oil? This is, of course, you're going to have those things. But then this stuck out, something I hadn't seen before. Number 9, the precariat and the middle class. Precariat. Well, that's a new word to me. I don't really know what that is. I started looking at it, and it turns out that there is a new book well, not a new book, but it's something that has really taken them by storm. It actually came out 2 years ago. It's by a London economist, Guy Standing, and the book is titled The Precariat. And the subtitle is The New Dangerous Class. It was, how are they going to control all these people whose lives they have ruined with their globalist policies? They have to understand, not only, they're not going to directly talk about the Brexit and put that on there, but they need to understand what they have done to people and how they're going to control us. And so he's got a plan for this. And I want to talk about that. Before I do, real quickly, I want to just take a quick look at how the mainstream media is now not only covering Bilderberg, but how they cover it. I thought it was kind of interesting because an article from CNBC, Bilderberg, the world's most powerful, flock to an annual secret meeting. Well, one of the reasons it was secret was because outlets like CNBC wouldn't report it. Or places like the Wall Street Journal, even though they would send reporters there. And, of course, you got Peggy Noonan and other people. Bloomberg is there. All these reporters from mainstream media, they go there, but they don't report on it. The owners of the paper will go, but they don't report on it. Reporters will go, they don't report on it. So it's a secret. And if you reported on it, you were laughed at. You're like, oh, these conspiracy theorists, just like they laughed at everybody. And it was amazing, the rapidity of which this all got reversed. As I've pointed out before, we have talked for so long about the missing classified 28 pages of the 9/11 report. And we've had high-power politicians who are on the 9/11 Commission who, for 15 years, have been trying to get people to pay attention to this and saying, this needs to be released. We've had Walter Jones on multiple times talking about it. And we couldn't get any traction with anybody. They would just say, oh, it's not going, that's conspiracy theory. And then Donald Trump brought it up. And the National Review said he sounds like an Alex Jones caller in the debate because he's talking about the secret 28 pages. But then it got traction. Isn't that interesting? It got traction, and now 9/11 is back on the table. And when people realize there's a cover-up, when people realize they've been lied to, they say, well, what else have you been lying to us about? And then that gives us a chance to talk about the real lie, the official 9/11 report. And that lets this whole thing start to unravel. But we get back to Bilderberg. All these people who've said, conspiracy theory, now they're laying it out. And they're telling you the same types of stuff that we have told you in the past. Over the years, there's been numerous rumors of career launches and future presidents decided at Bilderberg. This is CNBC saying this, mainstream media. I thought that was a conspiracy theory. They said Bill Clinton was a conference attendee in 1991 as a mere governor of Arkansas, a year before he was elected U.S. president. Tony Blair was only a shadow minister when he got his invitation in 1993. And, of course, they quote The Independent, because The Independent's saying that too now. Okay? Then they go on to talk about all the people that are there, people from Shell, Deutsche Bank, Siemens. Henry Kissinger, former head of the European Commission is there. Also, the head of the IMF and also of the World Economic Forum. And then the King of the Netherlands, okay, all this stuff there. So then you get to Slate, who was just last week calling Alex Jones a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist. And now they talk about the Bilderberg blackout. But wait a minute, Slate. But I thought it was a conspiracy theory. I thought all this stuff that we cover, about the 9/11 cover-up and Bilderberg and all that was just a conspiracy theory, wasn't it, Slate? Even they are jumping in on this. I think it's really funny. And again, they go down with Bill Clinton, Tony Blair. They talk about John Kerry and how he made John Edwards his vice presidential pick after he impressed attendees at a Bilderberg meeting and so forth and so on. They say the meeting of 120 world figures probably constitutes some kind of news, yet to be fair to the mainstream press, it's tough to report from a private gathering that's locked down tight by professional security. Yeah, so don't even try, okay? But we do. We go there. We show you what it is. We show you the military, the police that are out there. It's like the guy that Rob Dew was talking to with Alex. Rob Dew tried to get the German military who's guarding these people to talk to him. They wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't come over to the gate. Then they saw him over at the gate talking to some German citizens. So he walked over there, and immediately the guy clammed up and walked away. But Rob started talking to the elderly couple that was there, started explaining it to them. And it's really hard to not believe somebody when you say, yeah, it's 120 of the most powerful people in the world are meeting here, and they can see the military protecting this place. And the military will only say, it's just an event. We won't use the word Bilderberg. Can't say that. Can't say the word Bilderberg. It's secret. But even Salon, even though they can't ignore it anymore, see, because we've put it out there. We show it, and just as this German couple is seeing it there, that's why we go there. We say, yeah, they say this isn't happening, but here it is. And we've got some releases of previous meetings where we can see early on the first meeting, they were planning the common currency, the euro. There were other meetings where they planned the European Union, creating a United States of Europe, but it was the euro was first introduced at a Bilderberg meeting. And of course, this isn't the only group. And Salon kind of mocks it. Yeah, say, all right, it's a secret meeting, but, you know, there's still a lot of crazy conspiracies out there about this. And they come in and say, well, what's going on? Where are the Japanese, the Indians, the Chinese, the Brazilians, Australians, South Koreans? Are they so timid that they stand aside and let the Bilderbergers have their way with the world without even making a peep? Oh, so it must not really be a very important meeting. This is a meeting for European and North American politicians. And they have multiple meetings. They're happening every couple of months all over the place. This is one of a lot of these elite meetings. And we point that out every time we talk about Bilderberg. They still don't get it. They still don't understand what this is about. And they can't ignore it, but they do want to talk about it. So let's talk about what they're going to be covering at Bilderberg. Just from their own admission, they're going to be talking about this idea of the precariat. And this is a term that was created by Guy Standing. He's a UK economist. His book, The Precariat, came out in 2014. As I mentioned before, the subtitle is The New Dangerous Class. And here, I'm going to read a little bit of this description on Amazon.com to give you an idea of what this is about. Guy Standing warns that the rapid growth of the precariat is producing instabilities in society. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous class of people because it's internally divided, leading to the villainization of migrants and other vulnerable groups. Its members may be susceptible to the siren calls of political extremism, and he argues for a new politics in which redistribution and progressive policies will get us all under control. Very interesting. Look at some of the other reviews here that comments they made. Standing shows that the condition of work and politics are subtly and brutally related, likewise related to the slowly clarifying crisis of American democracy, one person put in here. Exactly, that's what you're going to see. And if I look at the first chapter here, where he starts to define what the precariat is, he says in his own book here, the creation of a global precariat consisting of many millions around the world without an anchor of stability. See, this guy, I'm sure I haven't read the book completely yet. I've just started reading the first couple of chapters. I picked chapter 1 and chapter 4 here to start going through. I can tell you, if he's a UK economist and if he wants to break down his analysis of everything into classes of people, I can pretty much guess that he's not a he's not a libertarian economist, okay? He is some kind of a neo-Marxist of some stripe. And of course, precariat harkens back to the proletariat that Marx gave us. You know, this is the underclass, the people who now they believe are dangerously precarious. Why? Because of what they have done to us. You're probably part of the precariat. Let me read you what he says. This anchor of They're taking away the anchor of stability from the world. They are becoming a new dangerous class. They are prone to listen to ugly voices and vote for people who want to change this globalism. You know, people like Donald Trump, those ugly voices that they keep telling us are ugly voices. And to use their votes and their money to give those ugly voices a political platform of increasing influence. This is what they're reading at Bilderberg. How do we control these people? How do we keep them in this United States of Europe that we've created? How do we keep Britain from leaving? How do we control these people? They're not happy with the euro. This thing is a basket case, this currency. They're not happy with our open borders that's destroying their country. And they're going to do something about it. Some of these people are going to leave. And if Britain leaves, it's going to trigger a lot of these types of exits all over Europe. They say this comes from a neoliberal agenda. They admit it, that embraced to a greater or lesser extent by governments of all complexions and has created an incipient political monster. This is his words. Action is needed before that monster comes to life. Guess what? They're pretty scared of us, aren't they? They're pretty scared. So they're talking about the precariat. Now, here's an example. The precariat stirred, he says. In 1989, the city of Prato, a short distance from Florence in Italy, was almost entirely Italian. It had 180,000 residents. That year, a group of 38 Chinese workers arrived, and a new breed of garment firms began to emerge. They imported more and more Chinese laborers, okay? The importation of workers, the exportation of jobs. This is These are the policies of globalization that these people at Bilderberg have given us. Now, what happened? That was the situation in 1989. Basically, 180,000 residents, this Italian city, and just 38 Chinese workers come. By 2008, there were 4,200 Chinese companies registered in the city, 45,000 Chinese workers. So they go from 38 Chinese workers to 45,000 Chinese workers. And there are 4,200 Chinese firms. They're making up 1/5 of the city's population. They were producing 1 million garments every day, enough to dress the world's population in 20 years, according to calculations by the city officials. Meanwhile, undercut by the Chinese, buffeted by competition from India and Bangladesh, local Italian firms shed workers in droves. And by 2010, they only had 20,000 Italians working in this town, 11,000 fewer than in 2000. In other words, a full third of the people had lost their jobs. Then came the financial shock, which hit Prato in much the same way as it did many of the old industrial areas of Europe and North America. Bankruptcies multiplied, unemployment rose, and resentment turned nasty. Oh, well, they shouldn't be afraid. They shouldn't be angry about that. I mean, you know, you got the globalists are making a lot of money, and you're getting those cheap goods. Isn't that great? But you have no job. See, same thing is going to happen in spades with robots. And that's the other issue that's coming. It's not even going to be about immigrants. It's going to be about technology displacement. But listen to what happened. Within months, the political left have been swept from power by what this guy Standing, calls the xenophobic Northern League. Oh, they're afraid of foreigners. Why would they be afraid of foreigners? They've only overrun their city and made a third of the people lose their jobs, okay? Why should we be concerned about that? No problem. So what happened was they elected a new government there. And they started deporting these people. They launched nighttime raids on the factories and the sweatshops. Yeah, we wouldn't want to launch a raid on a sweatshop. I mean, we wouldn't want to do that, right? Rounding up workers, demonizing them. Just as the Northern League's political ally, Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, spoke of his determination to defeat, quote, the army of evil, as he described illegal immigrants. Okay? Bizarrely, they say the Chinese government seemed reluctant to take the migrants back. No, they don't want them back any more than the Mexican government would take back Mexican immigrants. They don't want them back. They want them out of the country. They want them in your country, they say. The Chinese built up a community within a community. This is part of the problem. Chinese gangs reportedly organized the exodus from China, and they ran the enclave. Oh, you mean kind of like the mules and the gangs and the organized crime that is running illegal immigration over our border? See, same thing happened in Italy. Same thing happened in Italy that is happening here. They ran the enclave. They were vying for control with gangs from Russia, from Albania, from Nigeria, from Romania, as well as the Italian mafia. So organized crime is running all of the illegal immigrants there. And they are trying to set up a monopoly over these sweatshops, creating slave labor in a town that used to be 100% Italian. And within about 20 years, they have lost a third of their jobs. They're overrun with Chinese gangs linking up with Chinese companies, investing in Italian infrastructure projects, taking over the country. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. In this last segment, I want to summarize what this Precariat is, because this guy Standing, who wrote this book 4 years ago, talked about the dangerous emerging class. He called it a monster that is emerging, and how these elites have to control it. And of course, he says, well, we got 4 different classes. He says, we got tiny, super rich, elite. Okay? He says, their relationship with the rest of humanity appears to be fleeting at best. Then there's the salariat, people on salaries, okay, who still maintain their career privileges of pensions, holidays, other employment benefits. In other words, the minions of that super rich elite class. Alongside the salariat are the professional technicians or proficients. Okay. Then he said we have some highly paid consultants and so forth and so on. Then there's the precariat, the proletariat, that is dangerously precarious position, this volatile political movement. And this is something that we have seen throughout history. That example that I just read you in the last section there about the city of Prato from 1989 to 2008. Okay. Short period, 20, 30 years there. Okay. 20 years. What happened to transform that town there? And what we're looking at here are political, technological, economic forces that are changing Italy and changing America in the same way. And this small town that he picks as an example is something that is going to be happening in America. We're at the stage right now where people are looking at the results of NAFTA, looking at what's going on with the TPP, the TTIP, and saying, that's enough. Stop. We're not going to do that. We know where this leads. We've already seen what happened with NAFTA. We've seen what happened in Italy and so forth. we're going to stop this. And we can see what happens as well in the ancillary issues in terms of the organized crime, the influence of these different mafia groups that come in as part of this. It reminds me very much of what happened in the 1860s. You know, that was the time of the American Civil War. And of course, we're all told in our government schools that it was simply a war about the liberation of slavery, okay? It wasn't. It wasn't. It may surprise you to know that at the same time we had our Civil War, there were massive forces that were happening in Europe as well. It was a consolidation of regional power centers into a concentrated, consolidated nation state. Just like the United States, Italy at that time was broken into a lot of different power regions that were pretty much separate and autonomous. There wasn't a central state. And they had a civil war in the 1860s, just as we do. And Garibaldi's army, look it up. Take a look at what's happening in that period of time in Italy. You've got agrarian interests, who basically had been the power center, the landed agrarian interest, and taking on the new industrial class. The new industrial class became the predominant class, and they established the centralized, concentrated nation state. Same thing happened in Italy that happened here. Agrarian versus industrial. The industrial side won. They created a concentrated, consolidated nation state. Slavery wasn't even an issue there. They used slavery. That was a small part of the issue here. They used that here to give them the moral high ground for a conflict that was happening everywhere. We are at the cusp of a similar major turn in history. As we've talked about many times, the fourth turning. We are at the point now where there is a major move to consolidate from that powerful nation state to a global government. And they're very worried about the Precariat, because that's where the balance of power is going to be held if we can wake people up. Join us tonight, 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the Nightly News.
If I was just gonna like attach an idea to it, it's gonna be dangerous freedom.
I want to talk about Bilderberg. When we look at the Bilderberg meeting and what their agenda is, according to Bilderberg, they say it's going to be things like current events. It's kind of vague. We know that's going to be Brexit and the immigration crisis and that sort of thing, because they do talk about Europe, the migration, growth, reform, vision, unity. So, of course, they're going to be talking about Brexit and immigration issues. And then the usual stuff you would expect, like China, Middle East, Russia, U.S. political landscape, the elections, in other words. Cybersecurity, that's been there for a while. Geopolitics of energy, what's going on with oil? This is, of course, you're going to have those things. But then this stuck out, something I hadn't seen before. Number 9, the precariat and the middle class. Precariat. Well, that's a new word to me. I don't really know what that is. So I started looking at it, and it turns out that there is a new book not a new book, but it's something that has really taken them by storm. It actually came out 2 years ago. It's by a London economist, Guy Standing, and the book is titled The Precariat. And the subtitle is The New Dangerous Class. It was, how are they going to control all these people whose lives they have ruined with their globalist policies? They have to understand, not only, they're not going to directly talk about the Brexit and put that on there, but they need to understand what they have done to people and how they're going to control us. And so he's got a plan for this. And I want to talk about that. Before I do, real quickly, I want to just take a quick look at how the mainstream media is now not only covering Bilderberg, but how they cover it. I thought it was kind of interesting because there's an article from CNBC. Bilderberg, the world's most powerful, flock to an annual secret meeting. Well, one of the reasons it was secret was because outlets like CNBC wouldn't report it. Or places like the Wall Street Journal, even though they would send reporters there. And, of course, you got Peggy Noonan and other people. Bloomberg is there. All these reporters from mainstream media, they go there, but they don't report on it. The owners of the paper will go, but they don't report on it. Reporters will go, they don't report on it. So it's a secret. And if you reported on it, you were laughed at. There's these conspiracy theorists, just like they laughed at everybody, and it was amazing the rapidity of which this all got reversed. As I've pointed out before, we have talked for so long about the missing classified 28 pages of the 9/11 report. And we've had high-power politicians who are on the 9/11 Commission who, for 15 years, have been trying to get people to pay attention to this and saying, this needs to be released. We've had Walter Jones on multiple times talking about it. And we couldn't get any traction with anybody. They would just say, oh, you know, it's not going, that's conspiracy theory. And then Donald Trump brought it up. And the National Review said he sounds like an Alex Jones caller in the debate because he's talking about the secret 28 pages. But then it got traction. Isn't that interesting?